Okay, everybody. Sorry, I'm a little bit late here. Had a few technical difficulties, but we should be up and running now. I'm just putting up the links, pulling everything up, getting everything ready. And I can already hear my computer starting to churn. Starting to heat up from the streaming. Let's see if it's working. It's working! Alright. Jeez, the video is so small. Alright, there's chat. Chat's working. Okay, I'm just going to share. Get the link shared out so people know what's up. And we'll get going. Alright, just posting the link to your Twitter here. Alright, what better way to spend a beautiful Sunday morning than doing some drawing. Alright, here we go. Okay, here we go. You guys are going to have to excuse me today too. I've been starting to develop some allergies over the last couple days. Hey honey, do you need something? You good? Okay. Got my daughter with me here too. But so I'm doing quite a bit of sniffling. Alright, shall we draw? So I thought what I'd do today, here's kind of the agenda for today. Kind of what I want to do is a couple of things. I've been meaning to do kind of a post-mortem for Sketchbook summer. Haven't really done that yet, just to kind of like pull this back a bit. Oops. Just kind of talk about things I learned this year, kind of new experiences this year. Make sure I'm just centered on here. And then I want to talk about kind of the stuff I'm going to be doing for the final launch of Green Monk, kind of getting ready for that final launch of Green Monk. So we'll be trying to do a lot of stuff this morning. Plus I will be doing some sketching too. Alright, kind of what I think I'm going to do. Let's sharpen my pencil. Pardon the sound. Jassem from Iran. Welcome. Okay, I'll be taking some requests too a little bit later on. But for now, what do I want to start with? I'm going to start with an exercise that I thought, I'm going to kind of do some of my favorite exercises from Sketchbook Summer this morning. And I'm going to kind of talk about some of my experiences with Sketchbook Summer while I draw. So one of my favorite exercises is basically using like highlighter and creating like spots of color and then drawing with those spots of color. So that's kind of what I'm going to start with today. I have done other versions of this that have been like more scribbly. So you can do this kind of more scribbly as well. I like kind of the idea of doing more thought out shapes as well, or sometimes just, like I said, just single spots. So that's what I'm doing here. Do we have anyone in the chat today that made an attempt on Sketchbook Summer? Haha, we got some requests. Just so you know, my daughter's here with me today, so she's spending the morning with me. We're gonna be doing this drawing, and then we're gonna go eat some ramen nearby here. She just came up behind me and just gave me a shh look, because she's watching. So while I'm drawing these shapes, I'm not really even thinking about them having to be anything. I'm really just kind of thinking more abstractly, just drawing pleasing shapes that I find to be pleasing shapes. As I dive into them, kind of make them into things. So we got a report of 1 attempt on Sketchbook Summer. So I'm gonna got a little confession to make. So last year I completed Sketchbook Summer. This year I did not even get close to completing Sketchbook Summer. So this has been a very busy summer for me. We have been staying with in-laws while we've been trying to renovate our house. We've been getting ready for the launch of the new Green Monk book, September 26th, which we'll be talking about that too today.
Daddy, can I draw?
You want to draw too? Okay, we're not going to be able to see it on the video, but you can draw too, okay?
Okay.
I don't know where there's any paper though.
I will go find some.
Go look at the printer. You'll find some in the printer.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I'm doing just some colors, some color splotches. Then I'm going to come back and kind of turn these into things. So this year really reinforced to me that like if you're doing what we call the full tamale, I don't know what you call it, the whole tamale or the full tamale with Sketchbook Summer. It's a big challenge. It's a tough challenge. Like I completed it last year, and it took so much effort last year to complete it. I think, now honey, you need to be very careful about touching this, okay? It would be better if you were to draw, or just grab some things to draw. You can draw on the desk, or you can draw outside. But it really reinforced to me that it's not a challenge to be taken lightly. Like, I'll always have someone casually mention to me, like, oh yeah, I'm going to try to do this year. And I'm just like, oh. Like, you really need to have the space to be able to do it, the time to be able to do it. This year was not the year for me. Although, that being said, I was really happy with how the event itself went and the preparations. I put a ton of preparation into the event this year. And we got all the challenges and all the themes lined up and ready to go. I made a couple mistakes as far as getting them sent out to everyone, but for the most part, I I was pretty happy with how that all went. All right, what stuff am I going to draw with this? Of course, one of my favorite things to draw, faces. So I'm gonna kind of zoom in here a little bit, get a little closer. Make sure we're focused. There we go. All right. Make stuff out of this now. See what we can do. This is still warm up. It's going to take me a sec to get warm up here. Now, the other cool thing about Sketchbook Summer this year, though, we did have, I think, 5 total confirmed completions. People, they sent me their videos of them completing it. Hand turkeys. I still need to post those up to the website, but I will post those to the website. So if you're one of those that finished and you're waiting to see that, I still got to get to it. I'm behind on everything right now. So Jossam in the chat says that Jossam is just starting the challenge now. So the cool thing is now too that I have basically created, if you sign up for the Sketchbook Summer email list, it should start sending you out the themes and challenges right away. So people should now be able to start doing it any time of year. Like, you really don't have to do it in the summer. You can do it any time of year that you want to. So if you sign up for the email list, you can start doing the challenge immediately. So that's kind of one of the cool things with Sketchbook Summer now. I spent all this time setting up all the email stuff, so that should work. I just got to double check to make sure it's all, I should probably give it another check to make sure it's all working right. Yeah, the other reason that I'm actually streaming today is because what I normally like to do is I like to do, so get this one lined up. I like to do a session, like a live stream, the last day of Sketchbook Summer. I gotta figure out what this is going to be. Ended up having a family reunion that was on the last day of Sketchbook Summer, so didn't even think about that when I was planning it out. All the other planning I did.
Is it a doggy?
Oh, you will see, honey.
Okay.
Alright, so what was I talking about? Let's see, I was talking about like trying to figure out what I'm going to draw at the same time that I'm trying to talk. Can't draw and chew bubble gum at the same time.
Daddy, I'm drawing my shapes.
Oh, cool. Perfect. Alright. Supposed to be more of like a tiger, but it is kind of looking into a dog. Let's see what we got here.
I'm not going to draw my faces.
Yeah, you can do that, honey.
What can I use?
can use any of the tools that I have here, okay? Alright. Let's see, got a couple questions here. Let's see, how long do you spend on warm-ups, and has that time spent gotten shorter? They've got a question here from Matthew Brown about how long do I spend on warm-ups and if that time's gotten shorter. You know, honestly, I don't really ever deliberately warm up. Sometimes I'll set apart some time for myself to do some drawing in the morning before I start what I'm working on, but I'm not really super disciplined about doing that. I kind of find for myself that warming up kind of becomes the process, just happens while I'm working, which, I don't know, maybe it would be better to spend some deliberate time warming up. But honestly, I find that like if I'm doing character design or something like that, I find that I start doing my best work kind of an hour into things. Like I don't know what it is, but it takes me a while to get into the mindset where I just feel like I'm doing stuff that I like. Like there's really a mental thing to warming up.
Yeah.
I think kind of one of the key things about it, the way that it feels to me, is that feels to me like I'm able to kind of visualize things before I start drawing them. That's what being warmed up really feels like to me. Like I have a very strong visual concept before I dive into things. Yeah, Inktober, another great challenge to do. Did anyone here try there was scaled down versions of Sketchbook Summer? Be interested if anyone here actually tried those versions as well. I kind of wanted to include those versions to make it more inclusive because the actual challenge can be so tough, to give people other options to participate. I know some people said like, oh yeah, I'm going to try these other challenges, but I don't know what people's experiences were with those. Alright. Yeah, I really don't like that. Probably I need to get a better camera. I'm not crazy about these colors. Or maybe that's just how it's coming across in the screen. Alright. Shh, Lucy. Alright, I gotta think about this. I hate having dead air time, like sitting trying to think about what I'm going to draw. The other thing I think was really interesting about this year is I feel like we're getting closer to like really figuring out kind of a standardized way of approaching the challenge. I had someone write, and they kind of commented, they sent me an email after, and they kind of commented that the thing they kind of learned was that it takes a lot of work, which, yeah, I agree with that, but also that, like, you have to kind of learn to be able to let go. You can't make everything look perfect. If you try to make everything look perfect, it's going to take too much time. It is really about speed and finding the type of drawing that works with speed. That was one thing I tried to do this year, is every single one of the exercises that I tested for this, I tried to time. I didn't do that with all of them, but
Yeah.
I tried to do that with as many as I could. The idea being that people could have an idea of how much time it would take. To do each of those exercises. Here's my Mesopotamian. I guess it's a Mesopotamian or something. Let me draw an ear out here, sticking out of his cheek or whatever. Alright, let's do something with these. Julie C., I just discovered your channel a couple days ago. Currently doing sketches every day this September, focusing on gesture drawings based on one of your videos. I think that is awesome. That's basically one version of Sketchbook Summer. I mean, really just sketching every day is a good thing to focus on. The real purpose of Sketchbook Summer is to try to communicate really like the volume of work that it takes to kind of get to a certain skill level, I guess. I have no idea where this one's going. Got a nose here. I think gestures are probably one of the best things you can focus on too. All right, Casey Nelson wanted to ask a Green Monk question. What are your influence for the art in that? Let me take a second to think about that. Honestly, so many influences that go into the way that I draw. So it's not specifically Green Monk. I mean, all of that just comes from like a lifetime of looking at things and emulating things. I think a common process for me is seeing an artist that I really admire and then like trying to figure out what I can kind of learn from that artist or, you know, steal from that artist. And there were things when I was making Green Monk where like it would change from week to week. Like I'd read a comic book and be like, ooh, I really like that the artist did this or that in this book. But some influences I think that were really big for me when I first started doing comics. Frank Cho is a really big influence. He's who I really kind of model a lot of my inking after. A lot of the cartoonier stuff I do, I think I was really influenced by John Kricfalusi. I used to follow his blog pretty religiously for a while. This is earlier on. This is like going back 10 years, I guess. I mean, of course, I had like my comic book influences when I was in junior high, like The Old Image, Eric Larson, Jim Lee. But kind of this, when I really started getting into comics as an adult, you know, I was looking at Frank Cho, Jeff Smith. I get compared to Jeff Smith probably more than any other. I'm going to change my inking device here for a second. You know, I've always been a fan of animation. So I think there are times when there's a little bit of like that Bruce Timm simplicity kind of finds its way in to what I'm trying to do. All right. Really, anytime I see another artist that I really like, I'm trying to take something from them. There's a character that I draw that was very influenced specifically by what's the name of the guy that does Cursed Pirate Girl? I read Cursed Pirate Girl right before I designed a certain character, and that was very influenced by Cursed Pirate Girl. There were a couple sections in Green Monk after I read This One Summer that I really thought about how they did layouts in This One Summer, and that influenced how I drew some layouts in one part. Of course, one of my favorite recent influences is gosh, see if I can remember the name while I'm drawing. Artist that did Pluto and 20th Century Boys. Urasawa. That's been a more recent influence. All right, let's get this little square here. So this is from Van Illustration. I got wrecked by Sketchbook Summer last year. Like you said, the battle with quality versus quantity was a struggle because my focus is naturally quality. Great to get out of that comfort zone, though. Yeah. I like the way my mind works once I stop thinking about quality too. I mean, it's good to slow down and try to do stuff that's quality as well. But my mind just I like the stuff I come up with when I'm just moving fast. All right, well, so one of the things I wanted to talk about, we are also here, I wanted to start announcing some of the stuff that I'm going to be doing on the lead up to Green Monk. So I'm gonna kind of draw some of that in here. That'll be maybe my label to this page. Wait, I know how I'll do it. Okay, and I can make it like a word balloon. Make this little triangle dude saying it. You know, we have different parts of our brain, and I think part of it is figuring out how to get access to different parts of our brain and the different things that they do. And let's see. You know, when we slow down and we're trying to be really careful and high quality, that's like one part of our brain. All right. So, let's talk about the Green Monk final countdown. I swear I did not plan this. This might work okay. You know, when you have to draw fast, you're just kind of tapping into a different part of your brain just to kind of finish that thought. And you're going to get certain ideas and certain things are going to come out that you wouldn't normally by kind of slowing down. So we've got 3 days kind of leading up to, well, not right now, but there's going to be kind of 3 days leading up to the launch of Green Monk. And I got kind of some special plan for each one of those days. So I'll talk about those in just a bit. Alright, gravestone. What influences the environment in your work? I heard in one video that you live in Utah. Like, do you take a lot of natural influences from the Utah mountains? Kind of like I do in my creative work. I probably should more. Honestly, I don't get out into the mountains as much as I would like to. Growing up, I lived basically next to a mountain where I could just go hiking every day. And I don't reference nature around here quite as much as I think I could. But a lot of that just comes from, you know, looking a reference of things I like, you know, paying attention to things I like. Some of it I've specifically have looked at reference of places in Russia that I'm trying to kind of copy. Alright, so we got 3 days. Let me see if I can get this right. Da-dum-dum-dum. It's going to be the 24th, 25th, and the 26th. 26th is launch day for Green Monk, so I'm going to be planning something special to release on each one of those days. So, especially the big one I would focus on is if you are planning on buying the book on the 26th. So I'll tell you one of the things. Maybe should I start on a new page? Let me finish this last blob, and then maybe I'll start on a new page. All right, I did have a request for an octopus, so maybe this last one needs to be an octopus. Octopuses don't really have faces like this, right? But
That's cute.
octopus tentacles. A little bit of a cop-out. Didn't want to draw a bunch of crazy tentacles.
He's so cute.
All right. Okay. Let's finish that page. All right, what other exercise do we want to do here? Yeah, another thing I really like playing with is like 3D primitives. So I'm going to do some 3D primitives and kind of turn them into stuff. Just make sure I'm... Zoom here. I can't even see where I am now. Oh, there we are. Okay.
There. All good. Daddy finished.
Ooh, you finished yours. Do you want to see? Should we show everybody?
Yeah.
All right. Here are Lucy's sketches. She was doing a little blue highlighter. Friends. All right. Thanks, Annie.
Welcome.
This seems very light. love drawing with these blue color erase pencils. They don't always show up great on video. How well is everyone seeing this? Can you see this okay? So I'm just doing some 3D primitives. Hey, welcome, Serentropy. Welcome to the stream. All right, let's do some cylinders too. You know what? I'm just gonna do a cylinder. This cube isn't quite right. Let me fix this a little bit. Coming out of this cube. Let's see if I can figure out how I want to do this.
Daddy, can I watch something in the movie room?
Uh-huh. Do you know how to set it all up?
I think so.
Okay. Alright, I'm trying to draw a cylinder kind of coming out of this cube, side of this cube. Fix this cube a bit as I go. Man, have I ever told you guys that I suck at drawing ellipses? I'm always kind of having to scratch them in place there. Saren. Okay. Welcome, Saren. Let's see. Now as I'm drawing this line here, I'm trying to match it up with this line here. Kind of trying to imagine the perspective. You don't always need a perspective grid to know what you're supposed to be, where everything's supposed to be. You can establish, just by drawing this cube, I've established perspective, and so I can match the perspective of this cube without having to draw an actual perspective grid. Alright, so let's talk again about the lead up to Sketchbook Summer. Or sorry, the lead up to launch at Green Monk. I feel like I'm taking a little bit too much time on this. So on day one, that's going to be, what day did we say that is? September 24th. September 24th. I'm going to do a new tutorial. Tutorial vid. It might be kind of a making of thing, so tutorial / making of. But it's going to be a little bit more extensive, than some of the other videos I do. So that'll be on the 24th. And also on the 24th, something else. But you'll have to stay tuned for the something else. And now I got to figure out what that something else is going to be. I mean, no, I already know what it's going to be. Okay. Again, I'm trying to figure out perspective here. Kind of do this line here to make it semi-parallel to this line over here, so then I can kind of figure out what this line should be. And I'm just taking primitives and just kind of clumping primitives together to make weird shapes. Alright, got another question here. Looking outside influences or references internal to Western narrative or commercial art, considering the location, characters, and culture of Green Monk, is there any influence of, like, Icon's painting, also illuminated manuscripts and the like? Yeah, I did look at some of that stuff. I mean, that was, as I got into the story, I knew that I was going to be dealing with more stuff that had that specific look to it, so I did look at iconography. So as I've mentioned before that Green Monk is influenced by Andrei Rublev. the Tarkovsky film, and so I looked at Andrei Rublev and some of his icon work. I looked at other Russian artists as well. I really liked Bilibin. I can't remember what Bilibin's first name is. There's some amazing Russian artists though that I've discovered in the process. All right, let's add some more. You know, I honestly don't think I got as deep into Russian stuff as Craig Thompson probably did into calligraphy with Habibi. I mean, I think he like had a pretty deep study with that stuff. I've like checked out some books from the library, you know, on Russian art and Russian history and things like that. But I will fully admit that most of what I've learned has been through like Wikipedia. I'm trying to decide if I want to kind of break out of this perspective grid that I'm working in.
What is that?
What's what?
That.
It's just random shapes. I'm just practicing putting random shapes together.
And also the moon door's locked.
What's that?
Moon door's locked.
Oh, the room door's locked? Oh, okay. Hold on. You know, I really, really admire artists that put a ton of research into their work. The other one I really admire is Biography of Louis Riel, and Chester Brown, by Chester Brown. And he has all of his references, all the research he did on that. Like, I love a really well-researched piece of art. I think like The Witch was also that way. It was just like very, very well researched. I love that stuff. At the same time, I don't think I really have the constitution for it, the sensibility for it. I remember the guy who I can't remember the name of the dude that invented Conan the Barbarian, but he kind of said that, made the comment that like he wanted to make up his history just because he didn't want to have to worry about making everything accurate. And I'll be honest that like I try to do my best to be historically accurate, but there's times when I'm just like I just need to kind of make a good guess about what this would probably be, because there's so many little questions you can start asking yourself, you know. And I don't know what assumptions I'm making. You know, I'm not a medieval scholar, so I don't know what assumptions I'm making about the way things were then. So just trying to do my best guess. Robert E. Howard, yeah, thanks. I have not been to Russia yet, but I would love to go to Russia someday. All right, do you need help getting in the living room? Here. 1 sec. So you're going to use this key to get into the other side, okay? Think you can figure it out? Yeah, and there's a lot in the mythology. Like the truth is, there's things here and there that are influenced by Russian folklore, but you know, a lot of it is just stuff that I think is interesting, and so there are images and ideas in there that aren't necessarily inspired by Russian folklore. They're just. I feel like the setting has been kind of a jumping off point for me to just get excited and interested and create a world. But it's still a mythical world, and there's still a lot of stuff that I'm just kind of making up. And to say that I'm making it up doesn't mean that I'm being kind of lazy in how I'm designing it or inventing it. Like there's still a lot of thought that goes into how it's being invented, or how it's invented and how it's designed. But it's not all totally historically accurate, or even like mythologically accurate. But there are some details that I found that I really like for example, reading about the transition from paganism in Russia to Christianity, and kind of the last pagan prince was Sviatoslav, and how there was like a particular style, way that pagans kind of styled their hair, and so I tried to incorporate that. There's in the conclusion to the book, with the pagans are kind of styled after the kind of Russian pagan look. Usually it was the head was shorn, and then there was like a ponytail at the top of your hair, a ponytail at the top of your head, something like that. I did kind of some variations on that. But that was kind of like, you can find pictures of Sviatoslav, and that's kind of his style of hair. I think it was his son that must have been the first Christian prince of Russia. Blue 45, hey, no problem. I was actually a little bit late, so we're all good. Okay, let's see here. What do you guys think? Do you think drawing primitives? How do you guys like watching me draw primitives? What if I were to draw a scene? Would you guys be interested in me kind of like composing an entire scene? Would that be interesting? That would give me a chance to do a little bit of figure work, but also to do some perspective as well. Kind of show you maybe a little bit of the process that goes into me making a scene. Let me do that. I'm going to start a new page here. Let's make a scene. We can actually even do this like improv. I mean, why don't you guys give me a concept for a scene? See if we can create a scene. I have a little bit of an idea of. I took a walk today, and have an idea of like a POV that would be interesting. But yeah, it's up to you. You guys can give me some ideas or not give me ideas. Maybe I'll just jump into it. So, church massacre. Jeez, we're going right there. A fantasy scene, a real life one. Yeah, just throw out it is. It could be fantasy. It could be real life. I mean, let's start it with a setting. Give me a setting. We have church massacre, so maybe we take church. Maybe we do a church. Doesn't have to be church. You guys can throw out some other ideas for a setting. And we'll talk a little bit about perspective. So along the way, I think one of the I have a tutorial I'm working on about perspective. So let's do a something that could be a green monk scene. We just need to figure out where we want to do it. Do you want to do it in a church? If so, I gotta. It might be more detailed, but we could do it in such a way that I don't have to worry about the details quite as much. So what do you guys see? Graveyard. So we got graveyard, rundown church. Okay, I think I kind of like that. Okay, so let's do like a rundown church. I feel like, okay, I've got an idea for a scene here. So let me make sure this is all fitting onto the screen here. That looks about right. All right, something kind of like this. A good way to start this would be to really start with a thumbnail. But the most important thing when I'm thinking about a scene is I'm thinking about the points of focus. Can you play Final Countdown song from Europe? I should. I really should. Dogs playing poker in the cloister. Okay, we're going to do some sort of church scene. Were you able to make it work? You couldn't even get through the door?
Well, the keyboard's I think you press the Xbox button.
Yeah, there's 3 remotes. You have to press the Xbox button, and then the 2 other remotes. One turns on the TV and one turns on the receiver. That turns on the sound. Okay? All right. So this is actually the hardest part of making a comic book, is figuring out a scene, but we'll see if we can figure this out. So I'm thinking about like perspective. Okay, the real secret to perspective is that you rarely actually need vanishing. You really need to actually like have vanishing points in the scene. I have a tutorial that's about perspective without vanishing points, which is probably one of the most important tutorials you can watch. I rarely actually have like vanishing points when I'm drawing something. And that's because usually the vanishing points are going to be like off screen, and you really don't need them. And yeah, watch that video on on perspective without vanishing points to understand why that is. One of the most common ones that I do is just a 2-point perspective. You know, that's kind of maybe a low angle 2 points perspective. So I'm trying to decide with this one though if I want a higher angle, if I want a lower angle. What might be kind of interesting though is I can do kind of a higher angle, like maybe someone sitting, a figure sitting in like a broken window, like they're up in a broken window looking inside the church at a scene inside the church. What do you guys think about that? I think that could be kind of interesting. So I just need to figure out. And in general too, when I'm thinking about a scene, I'm gonna have like 2 figures in it. Okay, I'm gonna have like one figure in the window, and I'm gonna have like one figure like sitting in like the pews, right? They're sitting in like the seat. So now I just need to figure out, I'm just trying to visualize. The other secret is that most of the problems in drawing are solved in your head, not on the paper. And if you can visualize something well, then you're halfway there. Okay. All right, so basically my perspective grid, I'm going to start kind of striking down my perspective grid. You see, I don't really even need a vanishing point to really figure this out. I can put in a couple lines. This is going to be kind of a ground plane. I'm not sure how well you can see this, but it's going to be kind of a perspective grid. And then we're just going to kind of do, I'm not going to do anything too extreme. So it's a little bit light. I don't know how well you can see that, but I'm going to try to establish a church window here. This is going to be our window. So I'm working on 2 different. I'm basically going to have 2 different planes here. I'm going to have foreground and I'm going to have a background. But it's really important to note that they share the same perspective grid. So I'm working on this foreground element right now, and I got to fix this because I'm creating like a windowsill, and then this needs to be right here. Okay, that's accurate. So this is my foreground. It's kind of this windowsill. I'm going to have a figure sitting in this windowsill.
watching a movie because I can't find a movie that I want to watch.
But the Xbox isn't showing up?
It doesn't really sound, but then it just says, no signal.
Alright, pencil I'm using is, this is a Prismacolor color erase, indigo. That's what I use for most of my sketching. You can see I've got a video about tools on my YouTube channel. If you look up tools on my YouTube channel, you can see my video about tools, and I talk about all my tools there. So I've got this figure in the window. The problem I'm making here for myself is I want to show the inside of this church as well, and I'm not creating enough room to do that. So I really need to think about framing, using this character to frame the scene that's going on. So I'm going to fix this just a little bit. So I think kind of our point of focus is actually going to be right here, and so this figure kind of needs to get out of the way a little bit so we can see what's going to be going on in our point of focus. So I'm going to kind of create like a framing. Actually, I want him to fit our perspective a little bit too. So there's going to be an arm, we're going to have head up here. Maybe we got some sort of like assassin or something up here. Alright, I'm going to start laying in a really quick, let's just lay in some value here. This guy's going to be silhouetted. I highly recommend you guys check out my video on composition. Talk a lot about a lot of these issues on my video about composition. Okay, so kind of creating some value, a value concept here. I'm going to kind of comp into another, like there's probably going to be another window like right here. So we'll kind of, I'm starting to lose my perspective for a little bit, but here's the window. And then we're actually going to have, this is the scene, this is our area of focus right here. So we're going to try to just indicate some quick lines in that are going to kind of be where the church pews might be. So I'm gonna focus on the character that's our area of focus first, and then we can kind of fill in the details around that character. So we've got another character in here. I kind of have them kneeling at the pews, even though it's in some busted up church. It's like one of those little kneely things in there. I don't know if they would have had those back in like medieval times, but maybe this isn't even medieval. This could be like contemporary. Yeah, so the idea here is that this is going to be a broken window. So maybe I can even indicate in some like broken glass here. And I'll put in, there's sometimes these like little bars that go into like, not bars, or these things that go to like reinforce glass in church windows. You can have those retreating in. So it's a figure sitting in a broken window, looking down at someone. And you'll notice this is kind of my frame is this. I'm leaving a lot of dead space out here. One thing I'm not crazy about is that this is very even. Like, this is like almost exactly equal to this. It's like half. Like, are you seeing this? Let me make sure this is visible. Like, this side is half of this. We've got half and half here. It's not as pleasing of a composition as I would like. I mean, if it was a comic book and if I could fix that, you know, I might make just this a frame. Or the other thing I would do is you could do, you know, make this frame longer. A lot of different ways I could do this. So this is kind of a good demonstration of kind of a lot of the steps you go through when you're figuring out a layout. I might totally resketch this now that I've kind of looked at this. Let me draw on some of these other pews and kind of figure out how this scene might look.
How am I supposed to make the TV work?
All right, give me 1 second, sweetie. See, once I've kind of figured out what the orderly stuff looks like, I can start throwing in a little bit of disorder. So I'm going to throw some pews that are kind of like crashed around, thrown around. Maybe you can start to see bits of the altar here. And the rest is kind of obscured in black. So really this is about enough. This is about enough to really like communicate a layout. Like this would be enough for me to start a page. I have really the important stuff here, and I could add some detail and I can get in the nuances here. So another good idea here is that from Gravestone is that you could use the wall to show how rundown the church is. So that's the other thing too is I have this detail outside here, like, and I can have this whole wall. Let me zoom out just a touch here. Like if I were to extend this frame out a little bit, like this, I could really have this. I could tell a lot of the story of this church, at least with, you know, what the wall looks like here. You know, the masonry could be chipped, things like that, or it could be that it's plastered. That's even better. It's plastered, but then the plaster is chipping, and you see kind of the bricks underneath the plaster, that type of thing. Maybe this other, I don't know where the other window's going to start. That's kind of throwing off the composition, having another window there. So that's kind of another thought with this. But this actually, I feel like this would be like my first pass on doing this, and I would try other things. Now that I've done this, I might pop in and start thumbnailing some other ideas about how I could do this scene that might work a little bit better. Like I could play with the idea of like, okay, maybe I want more of an angle that's a little bit more like extreme angle. You know, something like this. I've got the figure in. Got the windows, and then see if I can get this pews working in there too, something like that. Then I can start going back and thumbnailing a little bit and try some different layouts that might work. Or I can even try going and getting it even closer with the figure. Just do just like a over the shoulder type of thing, and I just barely see the edge of the window. It's kind of another option, and then again you see the scene of the pews down here, or character sitting in the pews. So I would play around with like different ways that I could potentially do that. And then it'd also be fun to think about like what the reverse shot of that might be. You've got like maybe this low angle, this character's like praying, blah blah blah. Meanwhile up here you got this character looming in the window. The person turns to look. Huh? Who's that in that window? Something like that. But yeah, in all of these, let me grab something to just kind of show the idea here. we're all working with a perspective grid. Like, so for this one, this is kind of the perspective grid, and then we've got our things moving up and down. We kind of go this direction, and then we got things going in this direction. For this low angle one, it would kind of be something like this. Where would the other, that's kind of what's going on there. This one up here. You know, it's a really good idea to kind of practice creating perspective grids without having vanishing points and getting just kind of a sense of how they work. And then if we're going to get back down to this one, you know, our perspective grid. It's going to kind of look like this. And a lot of times it's like you don't even really need to. Sometimes you just very, very subtly suggest that things are going to a vanishing point. But our mind really works okay with like isometric grids. And so you can do something that's very close to isometric, and that might even be okay a lot of the times. I'm going to close off this light here. All right, give me 1 second, people. I gotta like run to the bathroom real quick. I'll be back in a sec. Talk amongst yourselves. Okay, sorry about that. Let's see. Aside on individual panel or page level, do you plot out your visual beats for multi-page sequencing or pacing across a series of thumbs? Or is that more of a scripting thing for you? Let's see. Aside on your visual beats. I'm not. Oh, are you one? So Francisco Belo is asking, do you plot out visual beats for multi-page sequencing or pacing across a series of thumbs? Or is it more of a scripting thing for you? I guess the question is, do I do that in the script form phase, or do I do it when I'm actually thumbnailing? Most storytelling I figure out in the thumbnailing phase and in the layout phase. Or at least when it really comes to those like really specific image by image beats, like that's figured out in the thumbnails and in the layouts. That's when I figure all of that out. So hey, you can see my nose there. Okay, by the way, let's talk about. I want to talk about our next day and the final countdown for Green Monk, September 25th. So let me write this here, make sure you can all see it. It's going to be day 2. And so that day I'm going to be doing a Reddit AMA. That's going to be hosted by, I believe it's the comic book Reddit. I'll send out information on that. And I've got another really cool surprise for that day too. So I'd love to have you all there for the Reddit AMA. Any questions you didn't ask me today, you can ask me then. So anyway, that's kind of about how I do a scene. And doing layouts is really the most time-intensive part of making a comic. I think it takes the most work, but it's also the most satisfying, but it can be really incredibly difficult. And this is the exact reason why, is there's all these different variations on how you can do a shot, and you have to figure out kind of like what shot is going to be right kind of in the context of all the other storytelling that you're doing. So anyway, that's just a little view into that. So that was cool. You could kind of, I mean, I could add more detail to this now and kind of tighten it up now, but that's a more kind of grueling and time intensive process at this point. So, oh hey, Blue 45. Oh wait, who just came in? Oh, Arthur Boner. Good day, Bonner. Welcome. Glad you could join us today. And we had Herbman come in too. Cool. Thanks for coming here, guys. Anyone else here making comics right now, like making your own comics? So, what would you guys think about a preview of a tutorial I'm working on having to do with perspective? Would you guys be interested in that? See how well I can communicate it on a piece of paper. I can bring up some of my notes here. All right. Okay. So let me talk a little bit. I've had this like this tutorial I've been working on actually for years on perspective that I've never really finished. So I'm gonna try to share kind of some of my thoughts on perspective and see if they make sense. Just sketching them out here. The first thing to understand about perspective, let me just sharpen my pencil here. Oh, geez, ow. Hey, Jake, thanks for joining us today. So the first thing to understand about perspective is that human vision is a tool. It's a tool that works best for humans in specific, for us to navigate our world. So it's important to know this because we want to get away from the idea of thinking that the way we see things is the way that they are. The way we see things is the way that works best for us. And that means that often our eyes in combination with our brain is going to distort hold on, let me fix my camera a little bit. I bumped it. I hit it with my head. Anyway, yeah, our eyes in combination with our brain can kind of distort things in order for them to work for us. So that's important to know because we kind of see the world in a distorted way, and our mind kind of makes sense of it. And that's the other thing to understand is that seeing is a two-part process. One, our eye gets information, and two, our brain processes and understands that information. So this is what allows us to do something like look at a chair from multiple perspectives and positions and still know that it's a chair because we have experience with it and we understand what it is. We understand it three-dimensionally even though we only see it two-dimensionally. So all vision is two-dimensional. Even though we like to say that we see in three dimensions, we really only see in two dimensions. So we see left to right. We can understand motion from left to right. We can see up and down. We really don't see to and fro. We don't see in the Z. We extrapolate information that's going left and right and up and down and a combination of those two to try to guess what's happening going forward and backward with our vision. This is why people that have been blind their whole lives, when they're suddenly are given an operation where they can see again, they're just totally confused by things, and especially they're confused by things that have to do with depth. So like a ball coming towards you is going to get bigger, and going away from you it's going to get smaller. That's confusing to someone that's always been blind, because they don't understand the idea of depth, that you know, intuitively, that things that are bigger are closer to you, things that are smaller are far away. So that's important to know. It's important to know, A, that we see what we need. Our brain, you know, sees what we need to navigate our human world, and B, that a lot of seeing is knowing. A lot of it is having experience. But there's some inherent distortion in whatever we see that our mind just kind of ignores. Okay, so that being said, this is how I like to think about perspective. I'm going to see how well I can draw this. So I like to imagine perspective when I think about it, that we have the viewer. Here's our viewer. I've never tried actually drawing out this idea, so we'll see how well it works. And our viewer is sitting inside a sphere. And let's see, our viewer is like looking out at the world. And this sphere is, we can imagine, this is interesting. Alan Germain, thanks for joining us here. Said YouTube recommended this. What is this? So this is just a live streaming session. My name is Brandon Dayton. I am an artist, a comic book artist. I'm a former video game artist. So I do tutorials and essays about drawing and art. And we are doing a live streaming session today to kind of wrap up a drawing challenge called Sketchbook Summer, and also to kick off the launch of Green Month, which is my comic book, which is coming out on September 26th. So there's my 2-minute explanation of what we are doing here. And right now I am explaining perspective, how I think about perspective. So I want to imagine there's this sphere. Let's imagine that there's perspective grids all around us. Like, what would it look like? Well, it would look like a sphere. So I'm gonna imagine this sphere has like a perspective grid on it, and you can just basically imagine this like sphere that has like a wireframe on it. And one way to think about this like wireframe that I'm drawing is like, let's see if I'm doing this right. Well, it's a wireframe. Anyway, so it's all around us. And this is basically, if you see something that's done in 5-point perspective, what you are seeing, like a 5-point, like something that's really distorted, like a fisheye lens, what you are seeing is you're basically seeing half of this sphere. So if we were taking this sphere perspective and we were to cut it in half, we're just going to have half of it. And we got the person looking at it here. That half of it is basically, that's like a fisheye. That's a fisheye lens. That's everything you see in a fisheye lens, is what's inside half of that sphere. So you're seeing everything above you, you're seeing everything below you, you're seeing everything to the left of you and everything to the right of you and everything in front of you. Because that's everything that the sphere can see. It can see in all those directions. Now, what makes it look so weird and stretch out is that that's projected onto a flat surface. So we are seeing this half of a sphere projected onto a flat surface, and that's what gives us really crazy distorted, like crazy 5-point perspective, which is going to kind of look something like this. Is everyone totally confused yet? So that's what a fisheye view is basically we are seeing this half of a sphere of all the possible light that can be all the visuals that can be hitting us from 360 degrees. We have light and visuals hitting us from 360 degrees. And the fisheye is half of that. It's half of that. Obviously we can't see behind us. So what our normal vision is, normal human vision, is just a portion of this. Like if you just take a segment of this sphere, just cut it out, that's what normal human vision is. And we see very close to widescreen. We see much more to the left and right, and we see much less up and down. I'm trying to remember the actual, it might be, can't remember the actual like degrees of range, but like we don't see as much here as we do up and down as we do left to right. So the other way you can think about that is then if we take our fisheye lens, normal human vision is just like a little segment of fisheye, but it really hasn't changed the fisheye at all. There still is the distortion of the fisheye. So we got a question here. Let's see. The way you explain things is the easiest way for me to understand, so thanks. So that's normal human vision. And if we zoom in on that, one way to think about perspective is every type of perspective can be conceived as zooming in on a 5-point perspective grid. And it's all about how tight you want to zoom in to get the perspective that you are looking for. And this is what different lenses do. So you talk about like a wide-angle lens. A wide-angle lens sees more of this total fisheye view, more of this half sphere. A telephoto lens sees a smaller portion of this. So a telephoto lens might be looking at that much of this fisheye perspective, but when you blow it up, it's very, very detailed. This is the same way that any animals that have like binocular vision see. And when we zoom in on this, the perspective is much, much less. So we're not going to see, perspective isn't going to be as extreme. So for example, when you zoom in very close on a telephoto, you're going to have less depth. So for example, if we have someone and they are pointing their finger at us, we're not going to see a ton of depth with them pointing their finger at us. And let's see, there's a car behind them. The car is going to look like it's like right behind them, and there's a mountain. The mountain's going to look like it's right behind them. That's like that's your telephoto. So we're zooming in really, really close on that total fisheye that we could potentially look at. So got another comment here. Thing you said about isometric angles was spot on. Japanese scrolls use isometric for clarity and narrative, so scrolls can be read as they unfurl rather than segmenting time-space like comic. So that's the other thing to understand, is that our brain doesn't need perfectly accurate, realistic visuals for us to understand a visual. We can understand something in isometric even though isometric is not real. That's the case for almost all different types of perspective. If any perspective grid should have a little bit of a curve to it, but we don't draw perspective grids with curves, because once you zoom in close enough, our eye understands things. It wants to fix things. Like the human vision actually does see curves, but we don't conceptualize the curves. Like our brain kind of filters out the curves. So, you know, perspective's kind of a lie in a little bit of way, but it's a lie that reveals the way our brains work and they think about the world. So anyway, yeah, and obviously Chris Ware does some really cool stuff. So that's telephoto. Telephoto is zooming really in close on that fisheye lens, and like I said, the human brain doesn't need the curves. It makes sense without the curves. As a matter of fact, it understands the worlds without the curves, even though we see the world with the curves. So then there's also wide-angle lens. I'm going to draw over the top of this half sphere to talk about wide-angle lens. Wide-angle lens is taking a bigger chunk out of this fisheye. And the difference between wide-angle and telephoto is that we're going to see bigger differences between depth. So we've got the guy that's pointing his finger at us. I'm going to really make it extreme. Wide-angle lens, he's like, whoa! He's really pointing his finger at us. And so where we have really extreme foreshortening, that's what we're seeing. Another thing that you'll see in telephoto is that your up and down perspective lines are going to be things are going to be very parallel with telephoto. That's how your perspective grid's going to look like telephoto. With wide angle, you're going to have a much stronger indication of vanishing points in all directions. So our mountains now, these are our mountains over here, really extreme. You know, maybe we've got some buildings here. The buildings here are going to follow this more like extreme perspective. So we start seeing those extremes. We see extreme angles. You may actually have vanishing points appear. You're going to have like 3-point perspective. But yeah, the biggest one to remember is just that difference of distance. That depth is going to be exaggerated with wide angle stuff. So, all right, that's a short version of my perspective tutorial that some way I'll do in a nice, clean, organized, methodical fashion. But anyway, fisheye. So fisheye is the most extreme form of wide angle. So I explained that before, that fisheye is basically if you take half of a sphere and you put that kind of in front of you, it's like everything that you see in that half sphere is fisheye. So another way to think about it is, let's say you take a sphere, you cut it in half, and let's say that the sphere is photosensitive. So all of the light that hits that half sphere is basically what you're going to see in a fisheye, and then that's projected onto a flat surface, which makes it look really curved. Wide angle can be fisheye, but it can be a smaller segment of that fisheye. So that's kind of what I sketched out over on the left here. Like the left here is a full fisheye view projected onto a flat surface. Wide angle would be a smaller segment of that 100% fisheye, and then the telephoto would be an even smaller selection of that. But like I said, because our eyes, our mind doesn't understand things in curves, because that doesn't help us navigate in the world. Like, we understand the world in straights, so our mind filters out the curves, even though technically vision does see curves. It does see like that parallax. So that's why we can make perspective without curves, even though technically all perspective grids should have a certain amount of curve in the lines. Even though when you zoom in really, really close, those curves are going to be so nuanced that it wouldn't even be worth doing it. But anyway, that's kind of the basic way that I look at perspective now. I think about it as small pieces of a telephoto image. No, small pieces of a fisheye image, and you can kind of work from there as far as making perspective. So let's think about that practically now. So how would I apply that practically? Let's see. I want to look at some of our other questions here. Anyway, I do love art. I have problems. This is from Saren. On concentration, one subject at a time. I'm not looking for advice. Just came on because I like Brandon's work. Okay. Anyway, congrats on Green Monk from Bryce Burley. Thank you so much. So let me just talk about like a really simple way. Then we can apply this to doing like a thumbnail. So let's say I've got two thumbnails here. I'm going to do one kind of telephoto, and it all depends. I mean, you know, there's some general ideas about when you want to use telephoto and when you want to use like more of a wide angle. I mean, really intense, energetic moments, you can do wide angle. You know, more like serene, calm moments, or literally when someone's looking at something far away, that's a good time to do something wide angle. So like, let's say I'm going to do a city street, and it's like, you know, a foggy morning, and I'm looking at a city street. So that's a good good use of like a telephoto. So I'm going to do just kind of like city street, and we're going to do a telephoto. So there's a little bit of variation, but what I'm really trying to focus on with telephoto is I'm not trying to I'm not trying to make the perspective grid too extreme. So here's my perspective grid. My perspective grid is very serene. It's not super angular. It doesn't indicate a strong vanishing point. You know, we've got the city street. Maybe we see like another layer of buildings back this way. Yada yada. People walking down the street. So yeah, as I'm gridding that out, my grid is going to be much more parallel, perpendicular. That's kind of a telephoto grid. And this background is going to be squashed with the foreground as well. So if there are mountains, those are going to just be really large as well. I could put people in the foreground in this as well. And, you know, other ways you can use telephoto is you can do it to make things feel more oppressive, like you really want, like, the city is oppressive and the mountains are oppressive. People can use it in a lot of real interesting stuff. So it's good to look at movies for this stuff to see kind of how that works. So let's talk about a wide angle. So I want to do a wide angle shot. This is, man, this is probably the perspective grid I use more than any other. Is like a low angle 2-point perspective. And you can see here that it's very subtly indicating that there's a vanishing point this way. I do the same thing going the other way. And boom, I've got a perspective grid. It's somewhat wide angle, but not like super wide angle. If I want to make it even more extreme, I mean, I can do something like this. Oh, wait, is that right? No, it needs to go the other way. Sorry. So that's like our center line. We can do something like this too. So that's a little bit more wide angle. You know, you get kind of the drama of like a low angle shot. I could have a character, you know, with a weapon, this dramatic low angle shot, getting ready to fight. And then I can have like, okay, whatever, there's like the Colosseum around him. So that's normally how I would set up a scene. Is I use this 2-point perspective so much. That's a great one just to practice playing with. And of course you can switch that around and also you can do a shot, like low angle shots like we did from the church. Someone looking down from the church. I have a couple shots like this in Green Monk where you have someone looking up. I have a shot in Green Monk where there's the main character is up on a hill. He's looking down at the town. And this is like exactly the perspective grid I use for this. There's like these buildings on the town. There's like a little area here where someone's being like put in the stocks. There's like soldiers standing here. But it's the same like 2-point perspective with a subtle indication of vanishing points. There's a vanishing point that way, there's a vanishing point that way. But we don't actually have to draw those vanishing points. So anyway, that's a good place to start. Talk about the actual launch day. Day 1. Launch day for Green Monk. September 26th. So, most important thing for that day is we're going to have a launch party. And we're going to be live streaming the launch party. So stay tuned on any of that. If you are not like signed up for my email list, I would highly recommend signing up for my email list. You can go to brandondayton.com and you should be able to find a sign up for my email list. Of course, subscribe to YouTube, following me on Twitter and Facebook. You'll be able to find information on that as well. But if you are planning on buying the book and you're planning on having it, going to your local comic shop and having it on September 26th, I highly recommend having that book in your hand and having some sort of photographic evidence of it and then attending the launch party via live stream. It's going to be well worth your time if you do that. So now, another thing to point out is that on October 2nd, am I getting this in here? October 2nd is the book market release. That basically means that they distribute comics really weird. It's like they send them out to comic book stores first, and then a week later they send them out to bookstores. So if you're like pre-ordering over Amazon, you're not going to get your book until October 2nd, or it's probably not even going to ship till October 2nd. So with that in mind, like I have some giveaways and other things I want to do to like reward people for supporting the book. So I'm going to be doing some giveaways after October 2nd as well. So if you're someone that's pre-ordered, hang on to your book, take a pic of it, share it on social media. I'll talk a little bit more about that once we get closer to it. But I'm going to do giveaways for people that support my book, things like original art, original pages from the comic. I actually have a whole alternative cover I did that I didn't end up using, and I'm going to be giving away that cover as part of the giveaways. So, but you can pre-order the book on Amazon right now. You look up Green Monk, Blood of the Martyrs. It's available for pre-order, so, go check that out. So, anywho, and it'll be, you can get it on Kindle. It's going to be available on Comixology as well. So, I don't know, maybe we should finish up should we do like some requests? I was doing this thing before where I was trying to do see how many things I could draw in 5 minutes. I have 15 minutes left. So maybe we should wait to do that till I literally have 5 minutes left. I tried to take as many, last stream we did, I tried to take as many requests as I could. I think was it in 5 minutes, see how many things I could draw, which is pretty awesome and messy and hilarious. So, good comment from Urbman1 here. It's amazing how simple the character and environment can be and still communicate a story effectively by using solid perspective. That's a super important point to remember. I think minimalism is a very important thing to remember with comic books, and thinking about how much you can leave out and really focus on the essentials in an image and to tell a story. It's a really fantastic discipline to remember. So, yeah, let's jump into some requests. Why don't you guys throw out some requests? I'll start doing some drawing, and I actually got to run to the bathroom, so I'll be back in a jiff. right. Hey guys, sorry to step away there. All right, we're seeing some good requests here. Awesome. I'm just going to share a couple links here before we finish up. Is my head in the camera? Probably. Okay. Okay. Here's the pre-order link. Fortunately, the lighting is such you can't see my bald spot so much. Green Monk pre-order link is right there. And the other thing I wanted to do... I'm like trying to type on my computer without sticking my head in. Alright, if any of you guys aren't already subscribed to my YouTube channel, this is the link to subscribe. So, oh, for some reason it won't let me add a subscription there. Oh yeah, so Van Illustration is asking code for local shops to order. All local shops should have already ordered. I mean, they can reorder. I believe it's APR 188362. That's the, if you're at a comic book shop, you can give them that order code. If they haven't already ordered it. And that's really the best place to pick it up. If you're going to pick it up someplace, I'd recommend getting it at your local comic book shop. I think it's really important to support those communities. I think it accomplishes a lot more than supporting some giant conglomerate like Amazon. So, you know, but Amazon's part of the ecosystem these days. So, you know, I still got to put that link out. All right, let's see. So I got it. Let's go to the top. I'm going to see what we've got as far as ideas, or what are they called? Ideas, suggestions. Why can't I think of the word right now? Requests. Okay, requests. So first one we got from Van Illustration, we got a Bigfoot. So let's do a Bigfoot. And we got a little bit of time yet, so I'll take a little bit more time on some of these beginning ones, and then we'll speed up at the end, see how many of these we can finish. All right, Bigfoot. That's good enough. Let's see. Boar ballet. Good gracious. What do boars even look like? Trying to think of Princess Mononoke here. Tutu. Be surprised about how many tutus I've actually drawn in my time. Not something I really think about, but I feel pretty comfortable drawing tutus. Or ballet, and then I'm gonna give this ballerina like a Andre the Giant type, like one shoulder. Urban 1. This is the second Green Monk book. Yep, this is the second book. The first one was made in 2009. It's a smaller mini comic, all in black and white, just called Green Monk. The new one is called Green Monk: Blood of the Martyrs, and the first one is self-published. This new one is coming out from Image Comics. All right, Bord Ballet, person flying through the sky, and altitude is so high that you can see a bit of curvature of Earth. Jeez, it's like a whole scene. Let's see how much we can do. Okay, well I'm gonna have to create like kind of a scene here. There's an image I've always wanted to do. I want to do an image sometime of just like a tiny figure, like a giant image that's like. You know, the atmosphere of like Jupiter and like a tiny figure. Because I just have, I've seen like these like, we're sending all these probes to Jupiter and stuff, and everyone's like, oh, it's so beautiful, look at all these images. I find that so terrifying. Like one of my nightmares is like falling into a gas giant. I think that'd be the most terrifying thing. So I have this idea for an image. Maybe it covers a whole wall. It's all just the swirls and clouds of Jupiter and this like tiny figure like falling into. How do you undo the curvature of the Earth? It'd be something like this. Just have this tiny figure. If you really wanted to communicate it really correctly, the figure would be. You want to make your figure really tiny. It's a little stick figure. Ah! Okay, let's try to not make it look like a stick figure, though, Mr. Professional Artist. Get some more accurate proportions. We'll add some clouds on here. Some mountains in the distance on our curved Earth. Something like that. Some shadows under our clouds. It looks like he's just lying flat on the Earth. Maybe I would have to put him higher up. We have to show him relative to something, or I don't know. This is a tough one to figure out. Or, yeah, you could put him like up here. Like more like, whoa. That could be interesting. Their arms out like this. And then lots of like action lines. So they're like flying down. Okay. Let's see. So that's kind of the skydive image. That'd be fun to do a series of images along that. Dude or dudette with robot arm. So I'm actually working on a picture right now with a character that has a robot arm, and I'm really trying to figure that out. How I want to, what I want that to look like. So. Try kind of sketching something in there. Yeah, I'm actually going to be releasing a video in the next couple weeks that's going to be a character design video. And so you'll be able to see designs of this character. This is like a really quick sketch of this character I've been thinking about for the last little while. So yeah, if you sign up on my YouTube, subscribe to my YouTube channel, you should be seeing that. That's going to be kind of my overview of how I do character design. Dude with robot arm. What is it about robot arms? Why is that such a big thing in popular culture to have characters with robotic arms? It's like so pervasive. Like, what does that say about us? There's something there's like a metaphorical reason for robot arms. Maybe it's like a metaphor just for technology in general, how we feel like technology is this powerful thing, but it can be this alienating thing that also comes at an expense. Like you have to lose part of your humanity to have that that power. Something to think about. Maybe something for a future video. Asymmetry. The asymmetry. Yeah, something cool about robot arms just because they are asymmetrical. But I just think it's really interesting that it's arms. There's so many other body parts that we could make cybernetic, but we're really fascinated with, like, it's always one arm. It's like one cybernetic arm, one robot arm. We don't do it with legs quite as often. Sometimes there's like half a face that'll be like cybernetic. But we have a real fascination with arms. So Urbman, I don't know if you've been on my channel before, but anyway, this is how a lot of our discussions go. We start talking about art and they end up being like talking about the meaning of life. But anyway, so we got a couple minutes left. Let's take one more request and we'll call it good. And I'll just ask you guys all just please stay tuned for more news about Green Monk. It's going to be dropping very, very soon. I'm very proud of it. I hope you guys all really like it, and I'm going to be sharing more ways that you guys can kind of help to support it when that comes out. So anyway, yeah, next referral, next suggestion. Why can't I think of the name? Next request will be our last request for today, and we will call it good and let everyone go on and finish their Sundays today. And I'm going to go get some ramen with my daughter. Anybody? Bueller? Oh, maybe everyone's leaving. Okay. I think we're calling it good, guys. Thanks so much for joining me today. Hope to talk to you guys again soon. Bye.